making sure that legislators, which is a high percent, have never been on a farm, have never seen grain production, and do not understand what agriculture really is. We need to get them on board to support this path forward for sure.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Comstock channel. I'm Marlon Bowling with you. Glad you could join us today. I'm talking right now with Tim Thompson. He is a farmer from, I believe, West Central or Southwest Illinois.
West Central Illinois, yes. Mm-hmm.
All right. And he happens to be treasurer of the Illinois Corn Marketing Board as well. Tim, you wear a lot of hats. Right now, you're wearing a farmer hat. And we were going to talk about the wetness and the conditions for planting this year. There's a lot of angst out there in the Corn Belt that we're not going to get the corn planted. You probably would argue that point a little bit.
You know, it's across the board right now, Merlin. At the end of the day, is some folks pulled the trigger early in April, and I'm happy to say we were some of the folks that did that. Have got our crop in at this point. We actually finished on the 25th day of April, which is the earliest we've ever finished putting a crop in. Was a little nervous on the corn, some cool nights and that kind of thing. But in the day since then, we've had rain, and more rain. And as I drive around central Illinois, we are getting a little behind. At the end of the day, is the 25th of April has always been our target start date. So, we're really not that far behind. But I think, for those that's got crops up and growing, those who don't are getting a little more nervous. And right now we've got a pretty solid system coming through that looks like could be as much as another week delay.
Well, now, what do you think the percentage would be in your area? I know we had a crop progress update that shows we're a little bit behind average nationwide, but it didn't seem to be an overly concerning amount. I mean, we've had late planting before. Usually we always get the crop put in.
Right.
But in the central Corn Belt where you are, in general, I mean, do you think you're over half done?
Right here locally, yes. As you get outside of this geography, it's going to be further behind. I'd say probably somewhere around 30% done. But again, I made a trip up to Wisconsin late last week, and I was surprised just how little was done up basically from Springfield going north to the Wisconsin state line. There was some activity up around the state line, but I know they have some sandier soils in that area. It dries down faster. But overall, I'd say that 30% number is probably pretty close to from what I've seen so far.
From what I've heard, Tim, it sounds like the Corn Belt is kind of tilted where it's a little bit wetter as you go further east.
Yeah.
And maybe not as wet if you go further west. Does that sound accurate to you?
It does. I know I've talked to several folks in Ohio and Indiana that have really been, they've got some activity last weekend, got a lot of activity in Indiana. But as you got further east to Ohio, this pretty much a standstill for sure. So again, we're sitting here that first week of May, and folks are getting a little nervous, no doubt about it.
Just a reminder, make sure you like this video and click on that subscribe bell icon if you would. That way we'll notify you when new updates are published. And be sure and share this video with others as well, because we like to spread this important information. Do you normally do a standard rotation with soybeans and just go back and forth? Do you think acreage has shifted very much this year?
We are on a true 50-50 rotation. What's corn this year will be soybeans next year and vice versa. We are a no-till going into corn, and then we are minimum till going into soybeans. But as far as the shift, I don't see a major shift. I mean, I know there was some talk early on, and as I looked at commodity prices today, I was a little nervous that we weren't going to see much above that 450 here locally, and we were at 456. So I was a little surprised, positively surprised, which is a good thing. But I don't see a major shift, at least in our area.
Now, over the history of your farming career, do you generally get nervous about the corn crop if it gets past mid-May, let's say maybe the 15th or 20th, something like that? What do you think about potential yield losses if you have to get delayed that long?
At the end of the day is yes, but in reality, no. I mean, the nice thing is usually by that time we're in the middle of May, soil temperature is really good, really warm and growing. Hopefully we got good moisture levels, and that crop can go on the ground and really kick off and take off and catch up. Do I like the ability, particularly on soybeans, to have additional growing degree days, before that solstice? Absolutely. And I think that's part of what we've seen improved on yields, just because we've got beans in earlier and have give them a chance to get more sunlight. But again, I think if we're middle of May and in some cases late May, that crop's going to hit the ground, get going, germinate, and keep pushing on as long as we continue to get moisture.
Well, I wanted to talk with you about the work with the marketing board.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds like that's a bit of an uphill struggle here in the last year, as it's hard to do exports now. What kind of work are you doing?
Really the three things that drive our grain consumption. One is 40% livestock feed here in the U.S. 30% is ethanol, and then 30% is export. And currently, we have 5 trade agreements internationally, and there's 195 countries out there. We need to find more trading partners. India, Africa are 2 major ones that we really need to grow into going forward as the population increases there. Those should be good customers going forward. But a lot of work's being done at the local level, the state level, and the national level from the Illinois corn as well as from the national corn growers to keep that word out, getting in front of our legislators to push for more legislation to improve our locks and dams to make sure we can get this crop out of the Midwest and to the ports. And then ethanol, we know is sustainable aviation fuel is a big piece of what's going to be taking place for the future, and making sure that we're part of that process.
So are you pretty optimistic about that? It sounds like the latest rules don't take effect until 2025, right?
We've got a lot of work to do there. I think it also will depend on the administration change and how things potentially could happen there. I'm optimistic, but I think we still have a lot of work to do in making sure that legislators, which a high percent have never been on a farm, have never seen grain production, and do not understand what agriculture really is. We need to get them on board to support this path forward for sure.
So in your work with the marketing board, have you had to realign your expenditures, let's say, on promotions for corn here in the last year or two, just because of the way the overseas demand seems to be shaping up?
We really have a wide, I guess, group of forward-thinking farmers as well as staff there at Illinois Corn, and they're taking a look at those 3 major areas again: export, consumption, local consumption, and ethanol, and have been looking at those and working on those for quite some time and continue to be there. So I don't know that I'd say we've had any major changes. I do know that the locks and dams piece continues to be a big push within our legislators and getting federal funding to keep those projects, 1, get them started, and 2, to keep them going and to finish.
All right. So what's your main concern moving forward into the growing season now?
We got to have a little bit of dry weather. That will help a whole lot of activity for a lot of growers, and I think safety is a big piece of it, not only for the growers, but also as equipment's moving on the roads, safety for passengers and folks out tooling around the country. There's a lot of big equipment that's moving slow, but they're trying to get to the field and get the crop in to keep us all with a safe, sustainable agricultural food supply.
Well, Tim, I sure thank you for the work that you do at the marketing board, and thanks for sharing a little time with us here just to get us updated on how things are going. Wish you all the best here this crop growing season, and I hope you turn out having a terrific yield.
Thank you, and we hope so as well. Have a good day.
Thanks. Tim Thompson, he's the treasurer of the Illinois Corn Marketing Board, joining us from Illinois. That'll do it for this episode. Thanks for tuning in. Appreciate that a lot. For producer Brianne Hendrickson, I'm Marlon Bowling. We'll catch you next time on the Comstock channel. Thanks for joining us on our Comstock YouTube channel. Don't forget you can also find us on Facebook and TikTok as well. Futures trading involves risk. The risk of loss in trading futures and or options is substantial, and each investor and or trader must consider whether this is a suitable investment. Past performance is not indicative of future results.